Morning. We are reading Goosebumps. Are you afraid of bees? Probably can't see that, but at least you see the cover. I don't know how to do the screen. Now, what has happened? Okay. Gary Lutz, the klutz, is being picked on by bullies, by everyone. And he sees this thing on the internet where he can change bodies with someone. Kind of reminds me of the movie The Fly. Now, except something goes wrong. Sounding more and more like The Fly, doesn't it? He turns into a bee. So at this moment, we're on the adventure of Gary Klutz being a bee. As the cat's claws closed around me, I saw his hideous mouth gape open. Sting him! Sting him! The thought burned into my mind, but something held me back. Something told me not to use my stinger. I suddenly remembered something else I had read in the big book of bees. What happens to honeybees when they sting? Ooh, honeybees die once they use their stingers. No way, I thought. I was still hoping to come out of this alive and back in my old body. Kind of reminds me of the old saying, grass is greener. So if using my stinger was out, I'd have to use my wits instead. With a loud gnashing of his teeth, claws snapped his huge mouth shut. He lowered his head, preparing to snap up his furry prize, me. At just the right moment, I burst out of his claws and ducked out from under his gnashing teeth. Ooh. I tried to shoot off through the air, but the cat whipped out his paw and bade me down. Klaus was playing with me as if I were one of the chewed-up catnip mouse toys Chrissy always gave him for Christmas. With my last burst of strength, I spread my wings, shot up through the air, and flew as fast as I could. A backwards look out of one of my eyes told me that I had left the surprised cat sitting in the grass. For 1 second, I experienced a wonderful sensation of triumph. You did it, Gary, I crowed to myself. You tiny little bee managed to fight off a great big vicious cat. I was so pleased with myself I decided to take a little victory lap. I spread my wings out wide and began a big, slow circle in the air. Whap! Oh no, now what? I'd crashed right into something. But what was it? It wasn't hard like a wall or a tree. Instead, it was soft and clinging like cloth, and my feet were all tangled up in it. I struggled to squirm free. I wiggled and pushed, but my legs were caught. I was trapped. Ah, 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 ah. The booming laughter made my entire body shake. I suddenly realized where I was. I was caught in Andretti's net. A wave of despair made me slump against the white netting. I knew exactly what would happen next. He would put me in his hives, and I would never get away. All right. Up for chapter 13? I know you are. The full video will be shown on YouTube. And if you like Goosebumps, well, obviously you like Goosebumps because otherwise you would not be here. And you like mystery adventures and a little bit of teen romance, you might enjoy Vampire Juice. By whom? Reuben Shum. My link is in the bio. Excuse me. All right, let's go to chapter 13. Time to go back home now, my little buzzing babies, Mr. Andretti sang. Time to get back to the work, my honeys. He started to laugh at his stupid pun. My honeys. Ha 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 ha. Oh my, wasn't that a good one? Bzz, bzz. From the loud humming sounds in my ears, I knew I wasn't the only bee Andretti had caught in his net. In fact, out of my bright right eye, I could see another bee who looked just like me. He loomed right in front of me, wiggled his antennas in my face. Whoa! What a monster! My wiry legs began trembling with fright. I twisted myself around and around, struggling to get away from him. I finally got myself turned the other way, but then I saw I was facing another bee, and another. Each one looked scarier than the last. They all had big, bulging eyes, creepy antennas. They all buzzed menacingly at me. The frightening hum grew louder and louder as Mr. Andretti caught more bees in the net. Suddenly, the net began to shake, up and down, like a violent earthquake, until I couldn't even think straight. As the net shook, I lost my footing and fell into a big, squirming cluster of bees at the bottom of the net. Whoa! I stumbled over a pile of wiggling, hairy bees, and I staggered in terror. Bees fell on top of me, crawling, buzzing. Nightmare! I've never been so terrified. I screamed in my tiny voice. I tried to climb up the side of the net, but my feet were stuck under another bee's body. How I hated the feel of his disgusting fuzz. In my terror, I knew I had to escape. I had to get away from here. I had to get to Miss Carmen's office and beg her to help me. Then I had the most terrifying thought of all. If I couldn't escape, I suddenly realized, I would remain a bee for the rest of my life. As Mr. Andretti carried me and the other bees across his backyard, I started buzzing and shivering with panic. How could this have happened to me? I asked myself. How could I ever have been so stupid as to try to change bodies with somebody else? Why wasn't I happy with the perfect, good body I already had? Mr. Andretti opened the door to the screen in the area of the side of his garage. We're back now, my little monkeys. Oh, I should be facing, shouldn't I? Okay. He cued. The net started to shake. I figured out that Mr. Andretti was slowly turning it inside out. One by one, he started plucking us, his prisoners, off the side of the mesh cloth and plopping each one back inside his hanging drawer hives. As Andretti reached for the bees, they started buzzing louder than ever. Finally, it was my turn to be plucked out of the net. When I saw the ends of Andretti's grasping fingers reaching for him, I hung back, clinging to the net. I suddenly remembered his bragging speech about how he never uses gloves because his bees trusted him. I watched his fingers stretch toward me. It would be so cool to plunge my stinger into his soft, plump skin, I thought. Should I do it? Should I sting him? Should I? So does he? Ooh, we're going to find out. So for those of you who have just joined, we're reading Goosebumps, Why I'm Afraid of Bees. And if you like Goosebumps, You may like my YA horror book, Vampire Juice. Amanda and Sean stumble upon a mysterious can of juice while searching for Halloween costumes at a local store. Despite being kicked out by the sales clerk, they become obsessed with uncovering the truth behind this strange drink. With the help from some local bullies, they sneak back into the store through a crypt in the graveyard, only to find themselves in the midst of a spine-chilling adventure. Now, the link is in the bio if you're interested. Yes, it is. I don't sting him. I really didn't want to die. Sure things I really look terrible for me right now, but I was still clinging to a shred of hope. Maybe somehow I'd find my way out of his bee prison and back into my own body. It didn't seem very likely, but I was determined to keep on trying. In you go, my fuzzy little friend, Mr. Andretti said. He opened up one of the removable drawer-like parts of his hive and dropped me in. Ow! I moaned. It was so dark inside the hive and so confusing. Where should I go? What should I do? The air was hot and wet. Everywhere I turned, I was surrounded by a deafening, droning hum. I can't stand it, I cried. I could feel myself totally losing it. All around me, bees scurried around in the darkness. I stayed where I was, too frightened to move. Suddenly, I realized I was still very hungry. If I didn't get something to eat, I knew I'd never be able to find a way out of here. I spun around and started trying to explore. Out of my left eye, I saw another bee glaring at me. I froze in my tracks. Did bees attack each other inside their hives? I wondered. I didn't remember reading anything about that in my bee book, but this bee really looked ready for a fight. Please leave me alone, I begged in my tiny voice. Please give me a break. The bee glared back at me. I've never seen such a big, angry-looking eye. Slowly, I started backing away from him. Speak, I squeaked nervously. I've got to be going now. I have to get to work. The bee bulged his eyes and waved his antennas in a threatening way. I was sure he planned to sting me. I turned and flew away as fast as I could. I tried to hide. I was so frightened. I couldn't even make myself move. What if I bumped into another bee? I couldn't even stand to think about what might happen if I did. I realized I had to move. I had to find something to eat. Shaking with fear, I tiptoed out into the open. I took a nervous look around. On the far wall, I could see a large cluster of bees busily building something, a honeycomb. And where there was honeycomb, I told myself, there was honey. I've always hated the sweet, sticky goo, but I knew I had to eat some right away. As quickly as I could, I crept over and joined the bee workers. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw them doing really gross things with their mouths. First, they used their legs to pick little flakes of waxy-looking stuff off their abdomens. Then they crammed the wax into their mouths and started working their jaws up and down like a little chewing machines. Finally, they spit out the wax and used it to build part of the honeycomb they were working on. Yuck! It looked so disgusting. It made me sick. But what choice did I have? I had to eat some honey, even if it was covered with bee spit. Can't be any worse than fly spit. Okay. I turned my head and practiced sucking my tongue up and down. Then I slurped up a big puddle of honey. Amazing. For the first time in my life, I actually liked that stuff. Soon I was sucking it down as if it were chocolate milk. After a while, I got quite good with my tongue, which was actually more bendable tube than a tongue. It was really the perfect tool for guzzling honey. If I ever made it back to the outside world, I thought I I'd be pretty good at using it for gathering nectar and pollen. Why? I might turn out to be the best worker in the whole hive. I tried to smile, then I almost gagged on my honey. What was happening to me? What was I thinking? I was actually starting to feel like a bee. I had to get out of this place before it was too late. I wanted to start searching for an escape route right away, but I suddenly felt so tired, so completely worn out. Was it the honey, or was it the strain of so much fear? I could barely keep my eyes open. The droning hum grew louder. With a weary sigh, I sank against the clump of hairy bodies. I sank into the warm darkness of the hive, surrounded by the steady buzz, breathing the sweet aroma of the honey. I sank beside my furry brothers and sisters. I'm one of them now, I told myself weakly. I'm not a boy anymore. I'm a bee. Buzzing bee, a bee sinking into the warm, dark hive, my home. Sinking, sinking. Just thought I'd mention that I will continue reading Why I'm Afraid of Bees tonight at 10 o'clock Central. So let's continue reading chapter 15. I woke up with a start and tried to brush a bee away from my face. It took me a few minutes to remember I wasn't lying in my backyard anymore, trying to keep the bees away from me. I was a bee trapped inside a hive. I jumped up, took a step, and immediately came face to face with another bee. I couldn't tell if he was the same one I had seen the night before, but he looked just as angry. His eyes were bulging with rage, and he was moving deliberately toward me. As fast as I could, I spun around and flew away. Of course, I had no idea where I was going. Uh, the hive seemed to be made up of a lot of long, dark hallways. All around me, groups of bees were building honeycombs. As they worked, they kept up a steady buzz. The sound was really driving me off the wall. I began searching for a way out. I wandered in and out, and in and out throughout the dark, sticky honeycombs. From time to time, I shot out my tongue and lapped up some honey. I was getting a little tired of the sweet stuff, but I knew I had to keep up my strength if I wanted to try to break out of the hive. As I searched for a way to escape, I noticed that every single bee seemed to have an assigned job, either building honeycombs, caring for the babies of the queen, or whatever, and the little bugs never stopped working. They were busy as bees from morning till night. God, Mr. Stein. They were busy as bees. Darting through the tangled darkness, I began to lose hope. There's no way out, decide. No way out. Think there's a way out? I bet you there is. I sank unhappily to the sticky high floor. As I dropped, 3 large bees moved in front of me. They buzzed angrily, bumping up against me with their hairy, damp bodies. It was easy to tell that these bees were angry with me. Maybe it was because I wasn't doing my job. But what was my job? How could I tell the bees I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing? I tried to slip past them, but they moved to block my path. 3 tough bees. They made me think of Barry, Marv, and Carl. Here's the irony. I was thinking the same thing. Maybe they are, though. Who knows? We're going to have to find out. Let's go. I shrank back as if one of them pointed his stinger at me. He was getting ready to kill me, and I didn't even know what I had done. I screamed and whirled around as fast as my 6 legs would carry me. I darted back down the narrow passageway and turned another corner. Ow! I bumped hard into another bee. Luckily, he was hurrying off somewhere. Oh, that's disappointing. I have to go. My lunch is over. So, thanks for joining me, and happy reading.